First, I would like to speak about the minimum wage, which is a minimum wage implementation lifting people up. First, let me express the government's appreciation for the significant role the private sector continues to play as an important pillar of Dominica's economy, especially in the employment of thousands of Dominicans and making key investments in the development of our national product. Since the implementation of the minimum wage increase on December 1st, 2025, private sector leaders have raised a number of issues, all of which have been carefully noted. On the issue of the consultation and the work of the Minimum Wage Advisory Board, the government established the Minimum Wage Advisory Board precisely to ensure that all sectors had an opportunity to contribute to the process. The board conducted its review of several months, and considered submissions from the representative organizations of the private sector and also individual employers. We recognize that some recommendations were not fully reflected in the final schedule of rates. However, it is important to clarify that the board's mandate required it to balance private sector concerns with the overriding objective of ensuring a fair and livable wage for workers, particularly those at the lowest end of the income scale in our country. While the implementation date has necessitated adjustments for some employers, the government had to weigh this against the urgent need to address wage stagnation and the rising cost of living affecting thousands of workers across multiple sectors. It is also worth noting that many private sector employees have not seen real wage growth in over a decade, even as the economy has recovered and as certain sectors have posted strong performance. Nonetheless, the Ministry of Labor will review the transition challenges raised by employers and assess whether practical administrative support or reasonable phased arrangements may be appropriate in specific areas. Government's objective is not merely to raise wages, but to raise standards, to encourage decent work, and to support a sustainable, competitive, and vibrant private sector. Government wishes to assure the public that the adjustment to the minimum wage is being facilitated in a responsible, measured, and economically sound manner, designed to protect workers' incomes without triggering an unnecessary rise in prices. Contrary to common misconception, an increase in the minimum wage does not automatically lead to higher inflation. What matters is how the adjustment is managed. Government has therefore adopted a strategy that cushions the economy, supports businesses during the transition, and safeguards the purchasing power of all our citizens. There has been talk about the minimum wage will cause significant retail inflation, and I want to share with you some perspectives on this. In retail stores across the Caribbean economies, supermarkets, clothing shops, hardware outlets, wages typically account for only 10 to 15% of the final price of goods. Let's take a look at a practical example of a grocery bill of $200 EC. The landed cost of the items, duties, taxes, overheads, that is rent and utilities, and profit make up 85%, or $170. Labor makes up 15%, or $30 of the $200 grocery bill. A 30% increase in the minimum wage means that the $30 labor share will increase by $9, or to $39. Accordingly, contrary to alarms raised that the 30% increase in the minimum wage will trigger a 30% or a $60 increase on a $200 grocery bill, the actual increase will be $9, of 4.5%. Clearly, because labor is a small component of retail prices, there is really no basis for any significant rise in the price of goods, or indeed any increase at all. Retail prices move mainly because of international freight costs, global commodity prices, exchange rates shifts, and import duties. A higher minimum wage does not affect these cost drivers. Retailers can cushion wage increases through progressive improvements in the efficiency and profitability of supply chain considerations or operations, increased productivity, better inventory management, and waste reduction. Caribbean countries that increased minimum wages in the past decade, for example in Barbados, Jamaica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, saw no significant retail inflation linked to wage hikes. The price movements remained tied to global factors, not local labor costs. To ensure a smooth and stable implementation, government is pursuing the following measures. 1, productivity support for employers and workers. Investment in skills training, digitization, and process improvements to help businesses generate higher output per employee. Higher productivity offsets wage costs and keeps prices stable. 2, reducing operating costs. Temporary relief measures such as reduced duties on essential inputs, faster customs processing, streamlined government services, reduced administrative burdens, and support for energy efficiency will help small and medium enterprises absorb the adjustment without increasing prices to consumers. 3, targeted support for vulnerable sectors. Labor-intensive and small enterprises will receive targeted assistance to ensure the wage increase does not place them at risk or lead to unintended inflationary pressures. 4, strengthening competition and preventing price gouging. Government is closely monitoring the market to prevent unfair price increases. Strong competition and regulatory oversight ensure that any cost adjustments remain fair, transparent, and justified. A fair minimum wage, my dear brothers and sisters, lifts vulnerable workers without burdening consumers. The economy becomes more stable, not more expensive. Government remains confident that these policies will enhance the livelihoods of low-income workers, support sustainable growth, and prevent inflation. And we all will agree that after some time, that the wages that are controlled by an act of parliament, that those persons are allowed to be given an increase, like everyone else, both in the private and public sector, who are governed or who are represented by unions, have received increases over the years to assist in dealing with inflation in the country. And I'm happy that, from all accounts, that the increase in the minimum wage was well received, even if some in the private sector are of the opinion and the view that the timing may not be a good one, and that we're looking at to see how we can work with them on addressing the transition from the old rates to the new rates. But also interesting to note that based on the reports we received, it was noted that many of the employers said that they were already paying people above the minimum wage. And so many of them were already factored that into their wage bill. But it's just that the law now had to be changed in order to make it mandatory that people receive a fair wage for a fair day's work. And I'm happy that we're able to do so, and in time for Christmas, as they say. Removal of